The Christian Atheist is also available on YouTube, and you will find other great content, including the literature I frequently refer to, on our Simple Gifts podcast. If you find our content helpful, consider supporting us through PayPal at Romans5 at Comcast.net. Welcome to No Compromise, where faith and reason fuse in conversation. So we're back, love. Another week.
Another week of discussing the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be a different take on things, because the last 2 weeks we discussed the decision as not as a moral issue. We discussed it as a legal issue, and we talked about how Roe versus Wade was a overstepping of the constitutional bounds of the judicial branch.
Yes.
And how the Dobbs decision put the Supreme Court back into its place.
Right, its proper place in the constitutional system.
Right. And put it into its place as the judicial branch and not as the legislative branch.
Correct.
So that was a good thing. That was a very good thing.
Yes, certainly was.
That was like an amazing thing.
It's done great damage to the country that the court has been seen as the purveyor of rights for the American people, which has never been true.
And I think we discussed how, I guess because people don't know their civics or something.
Yeah, well, they've systematically dumbed us down in this country.
Exactly.
And it was no accident.
Right. Okay, and then the second thing we talked about is how the Dobbs decision gave the issue of abortion back to the states to decide.
Correct. Exactly as the 10th Amendment dictates.
Right, which is what America is all about.
The federal system is supposed to have 50 states that are the laboratories of democracy, in which we try out, each in our own place, a variety of ways of doing things, and then we can sort of learn from one another.
Right, and as much power back to the people
yes,
as possible.
Stepping back from the one-size-fits-all federal fiat.
So this is something we should be celebrating, no matter if you're pro-abortion or anti-abortion.
I think so.
Yeah, it should be something to be celebrated.
It's certainly a looking back to what the framers actually intended for our country.
And this is what we tried to stress the last 2 weeks. I don't know if we got that across.
Well, I think we got a lot of things across. I don't know if we got everything across that we wanted to.
Okay, so this week we want to take one more week on this issue, except it's not going to be about the actual decision. This is going to be about the way things are going to be going into the future now. What trends we're seeing.
Yeah. This article Jenny found while I was doing a lot of the Dobbs reading. And when she found it, she sent it over to me and we read it together. And we were, in a sense, blown away. But it picks up on a theme that we talked about last time, that there is a logic to these things. And we said that the left has this tendency to know how to start small, but build towards a conclusion that they want to go. And the logic of this situation, it's like back in Roe versus Wade in 1973, the abortion right, as it was termed, started very circumspect. And you were only allowed to do abortions within the first trimester. And after that, the state was able to regulate at whatever level they felt it necessary to support their interest in potential life, as both Roe and Casey called it. But we've seen over the years, and it's been 50 years since Roe, that they keep moving the goalpost, and it gets farther and farther and closer to the time of birth. There's even been some indication that they're looking to do, like even a couple weeks after birth, being able to abort a child. So, as we said last week, there is a logic to these things. And if we adopt the position that we can choose when life begins for the fetus, then we can choose when it doesn't. And that leads to very, very bad circumstances. And I think this article in particular gives us a really good glimpse at that logical goalpost moving.
Very good. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, so the article's by Sophie Lewis. It was in The Nation. Sophie Lewis is a freelance writer. She lives in Philadelphia. She teaches courses for the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research. And her first book was Full Surrogacy Now, Feminism Against Family. And she's had essays in the New York Times, Harper's, Boston Review.
Right. So this is not a marginal voice.
The London Review of Books and Salvage.
Yeah, this is someone that the left takes very seriously.
Right.
And is a member in good standing.
Right, exactly. That's the important thing. So the article was dated June 22nd, 2022. That was before the decision came out.
Right.
She was discussing the leak.
Did we say how we came across this article this time?
Okay, well, what happened was I always check into Laura's links on Mark Stein, and she posts links to different things that are going on in the world.
And you stumbled across this article.
Right.
And while I was doing the Dobbs case, reading it onto
Christian Atheist,
onto the Christian Atheist, you found this article and sent it over to me.
Right.
And we read it together, and we were astounded by it because it exemplifies so well that
the argument is changing.
That logical argument changing, right, that we talked about last time. How the argument, they continue to move the goalposts.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so the article is called Abortion Involves Killing, and that's okay! ! To be pro-choice is to be against forced life, which is another thing that we've been seeing a lot lately.
Right.
Forced childbirth, forced life, forced labor,
right.
Forced pregnancy.
If there's one thing I've learned about the left is that they are incredibly good at controlling language. And this notion of forced childbirth now is one that's bursting upon us. It's not one that I'm familiar with from years past in the abortion debate, but it's become one now.
And in looking it up this afternoon, there's a lot of it that involves international law, forced labor, international law. And I don't know if this is going to fall under that.
Yeah, well, they're certainly going to use it as a rhetorical device to remind us that what essentially we're doing is enslaving women to
That's
childbirth.
What they said, yeah.
Which again exemplifies what I've said before. It is not the right who hate women. It's the left who hate women. They hate the concrete reality that women are. It's not like you have a choice when you're born a woman. Nature decrees that you are the bearer of life.
Right.
And that carries with it certain risks and responsibilities. And the left hates those risks and responsibilities. And they want to clear women of them, which means they don't like women. Really, they don't like the historical, concrete, natural reality of what God made women to be.
Right. Okay, I'm going to start reading the article. In 2019, I published a kind of manifesto, Full Surrogacy Now, whose opening line is, "It is a wonder we let fetuses inside us." The opening pages are entirely given over to my extended paean to the process of gestating in all its shockingly grisly biology, its everyday sublimity. Whereas in other species, a female can often discard or expel a pregnancy at will, in our species, a hyper-invasive placenta puts the gestator at risk of lethal hemorrhage.
No, wait, I think we remarked on this before. It's like, wait a second, what do you mean that they can abandon a fetus at will? That they can expel a fetus at will?
In other species, a female can often discard or expel a pregnancy at will. But see, the thing about that is there's no... They're not sure. It's proposed but not confirmed that animals can expel at will. The only one they know of for sure are mice. It's called the Bruce effect, where a mouse is able, rodents, they're able to, if they're exposed to the scent of an unfamiliar mate, they can get rid of the pregnancy before plantation.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I never heard of that.
Yeah, I never did either. But it's only in rodents, and they think it's in other species, but they're not sure at this point.
Well, that's fascinating science.
Yeah.
But that is still not
common.
At will.
It's not common.
Because
it's not something that happens constantly like we humans do.
Right. And will involves choice.
Right. Exactly.
And choice is rational, and animals are not rational. They don't choose whether or not
the
to.
Only other thing,
it's a natural response.
The only other thing that is in in nature is embryonic diapause, it's called.
Hmm.
And it's when a creature can pause their pregnancy. It doesn't abort their pregnancy, they can pause it and they can put it on hold. Somehow they put it on hold if things aren't right, like I'm
That's
not
weird.
sure. You'd have to look into it more. I don't know if it's like they say there's a drought or something and it's not good for life at that point. They can pause their pregnancy. There's like 150 species that can do that.
Wow. That's
But
fascinating.
it's not an abortion. It's absolutely not an abortion. But
Right.
they can,
So essentially, the language she uses here is extremely deceptive.
Yeah, exactly.
If not right out lying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then with the placenta, now our human placentas are more invasive than other animals, but all mammals have placentas except for, what was it,
platypus
and echidnas.
and the echidnas.
Yeah, they
South
don't,
America.
because they lay eggs.
Okay.
No, it wasn't South America, it was Australia.
Australia.
Yeah. So they're the only, other than all mammals have placenta.
Right.
So, because she was saying about...
Did you read that part about the placenta?
In our species, a hyper-invasive placenta puts the gestator at risk of lethal hemorrhage.
Hyper-invasive placenta. In other words, what every other natural being, which goes exactly to what I was just saying,
but humans
they hate the physical reality of being a woman.
Yeah. Humans do have a more invasive placenta than other animals.
How so?
Because the placenta goes into their uterus, the wall of their uterus more or something.
All right.
But just so you know that it is more invasive. I think there's a couple other species.
Okay.
But the point is, all mammals have placenta. We're not the only ones.
Right.
And they can't just expel a pregnancy at will.
Yeah, they don't get to choose whether or not, once they're pregnant, they don't get to choose whether or not to bear the fetus.
Right.
Or bear the child, or whatever you want to call
Exactly. And I was thinking, if we're going to compare ourselves to other animals in that way, females, then why do we pick and choose what parts of the animal world we want to justify? For example, female animals, their whole lives are just reproducing and eating, basically, right? And taking care of young.
Yeah.
Well, if we want to pick that the animal world can do this, then why are we not living like that then? We have to take the whole thing, right? Do you understand? You don't understand.
No, I don't understand.
Do you know what I mean? We pick and choose which part of the animal world we're going to use to justify our argument.
Oh, okay.
Like an animal can expel at will, a pregnancy at will.
Which is a lie.
Yeah. So we pick that part and say, see, that's why we should have abortion.
Yeah.
But animals, their whole lives
do you want to live like an animal?
Yeah, female animals, their lives are reproducing and taking care of young.
Right.
So why do we pick and choose which parts of the animal world we're going to use to justify our arguments?
Right. Well, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good argument. It's like, what is that what you want? Do you want to be like the animals?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I think that is what they're arguing for. It's like, I want to be like an animal, except that I want to live this magical life in which I don't have any responsibility for any of my actions.
And animals do take responsibility.
They have no choice
for their for their children.
Which is the issue with this. Pro-choice becomes a moral issue because human beings are moral creatures.
Right.
Animals are not.
Right. Okay, so where are we? Female placenta. Okay, lockdown. Our body becomes a daredevil participant in a wrestling match or similar extreme sport. We cannot easily quit. From this starting point, I make a case for rethinking human gestation as real and currently often deadly, dangerous labor, deserving of maximal support. There's that forced labor.
Right.
You know it.
Right. They want to make an equation with slavery.
Right. And they have. I've seen papers on this.
So what are they slaves to? To the natural processes. Right. Again, they hate nature. They hate the reality. They want to live in some fantasy world in which women are something other than what they are.
Right. And so, and this forced labor, this dangerous, deadly, dangerous labor is what I'm saying brings in international law then.
Mm-hmm.
The controversial part is that a key correlate of viewing gestating as labor is that forcing someone to gestate against their will is forced labor.
Right.
Okay, so I'm telling you, John, it's like paper after paper equating labor to forced labor, as in the Nazi concentration camps,
Right.
the forced slave labor around the
Absolutely.
world. And it's almost as if they want to use international law now to step in.
Right. Oh, definitely.
I don't know, but if you just do a Google search on forced childbirth, you'll see article after article
Right.
of equating it to forced labor.
They are so
and
good at
slavery.
making those equations. Yep.
So what do you think that would even mean then?
And this is all brand new.
Yeah.
So once again, they
Yeah.
move the goalposts. If they've lost on one front, they never give up.
Mm-hmm.
They go back and they reframe the argument. And honestly, every argument is a lie at some level.
Yeah.
Just like it was a lie before when they said that abortion should be limited to that first trimester.
Mm-hmm.
It should be rare, but it should be safe and legal.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's not where it was left.
Right.
Because they always have an agenda beyond the immediate thing. And they're moving towards it. Right. And they keep moving that goalpost. That means that that's
international law into our
international law has no force, but it has an awful lot of moral force. Mm-hmm. And the people are going to do what they always do with the left. They're going to see the element of morality in the statement that they make, but they're going to see it just at that level. And the left doesn't care about the morality. They care about where it's going to take them.
Right.
Everything is about the end for them, not about the means. The means, whatever means are necessary, are justified by the fact that it's going to get them somewhere.
Right.
And sorry, folks, we're headed towards socialism.
Yeah.
That's where they want to take us on all of these debates.
Right.
On abortion, on climate change, all of these things are driven not by the facts of the situation, but by where they will take us. Right. Okay. I cut you off. You seem to be making a point. You mentioned international law. Where were you going with that?
Okay, well, we've been hearing whisperings about allowing international protocols or international laws to maybe overrule our Supreme Court decisions or our Constitution, especially if say the UN members feel like human rights are being violated.
Yeah, well, that's completely consonant with what we know about the left's goals. They definitely would love to turn the sovereignty of our nation over to the international courts and to international law. They resent the United States because we're conservative. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they hate that. So that makes perfect sense to me, and it's a great point.
Okay, let's go back to the article. So furthermore, if the labor of pregnancy is productive of life, then interrupting that labor is, logically speaking, productive of death. Rather than shy away from this, I believe we should embrace it as part of an effort to give gestating the respect it deserves. In the intervening years since publishing my book, I have received dozens of reports of women who experienced the ideas in it as deeply salutary during pregnancy. Strangers have sent me photos of full surrogacy now, lying face down in maternity wards. By the same token, I had drawn on heterodox pregnancy memoirs to bolster my claims. Never in my life have I felt more pro-choice than when I was pregnant, Maggie Nelson had written in the Argonauts in 2015. And here, this is what Maggie Nelson said. This is quoted in the article. And never in my life have I understood more thoroughly and been more excited about a life that began at conception. Feminists may never make a bumper sticker that says it's a choice and a child, but of course that's what it is and we know it. We're not idiots. We understand the stakes. Sometimes we choose death. Harry and I sometimes joke that women should get way beyond 20 weeks, maybe even up to 2 days after birth to decide if they want to keep the baby. And then in parentheses, joke, okay?
Yeah, great joke.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke,
folks. This was 2015.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
It's not a joke, folks.
Yeah,
it's reality.
7 years ago. And now
That's the logic of their position.
And now they're actually talking about that.
Right.
What, in California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, look, this is exactly what we said it was. They're moving the goalposts, and they continue to move the goalposts. Right. And if you think this wasn't envisioned long ago, look, remember what happened in the Soviet gulags. Remember what happened in the Nazi death camps.
Right.
When you can choose what is human and what is not human. There are no limits to whom you can kill.
Right.
Because you get to decide.
And
this is the logic we're dealing with.
And the fact that this article, they're trying to convince us that, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
Wait. Let's read on. We'll see. Okay, you'll see.
Before you do, let me just say that this admission. Now, this clear admission that she's making. What do you think? We're fools?
Yeah.
You think we don't understand that we're killing a child?
Right.
Of course we do. But we embrace that now.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying. That's what this article is all about. That's what shocked me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's they would not have done this years ago if you would have talked to the people in the liberals, the left, some of whom are what Lenin would have called useful idiots. That is, they didn't know what they were doing. They actually bought the arguments. But there was still a group that knew where this was going and was perfectly all right with it and wanted it to go there. And that's where we're heading now. And we're getting to the point where we recognize those arguments were lies.
Exactly. They knew all along it's a baby.
Yes.
That this is a living baby.
Right. And don't care.
Right.
Continuing with the article.
I agree with Nelson. There is something infantilizing about denying the fact that embryos die when we scrape them out of bodies of which they are a part. It sentimentalizes pregnant or potentially pregnant humans as fundamentally non-violent creatures to imply that we can't handle the truth about what we are up to when we opt out.
Yeah, see, we always tried to point out that here's the truth. What you're doing is killing a baby. But no, that's not what we're doing. It's just a sperm and an egg. Yeah, that's what they always said.
But now it's coming to this. Where, sure, we are killing a baby.
Yeah, now it's okay. Right. Yeah, it's okay.
And so now think of yourself as a pro-lifer and you say to somebody, but you're killing a baby. Now they can just say, yeah, we are.
We are, and that's okay.
Well,
we're all right with that.
Listen further down. This is what... Okay. And it patronizes abortion getters to insist that we are only making a healthcare choice rather than also extinguishing a future child. In my view, recognizing that just stating manufactures a proto-person requires acknowledging that abortion kills a proto-person. A baby is completely dependent on human care in order to stay alive, but its needs could be filled by any person, whereas a fetus, a proto-person, is ineluctably dependent on specific person.
Well written, huh?
We humans do kill when necessary. Victims of assault sometimes kill in self-defense. Targets of persecution sometimes kill for justice or just to reduce the number of their persecutors. And the colonized sometimes kill for liberation. Mothers living in unspeakable conditions, including chattel slavery, have been documented to kill their children as an act of mercy. Of course, these examples are instances of necessary violence generated by the conditions for which we struggle to render extinct. When it comes to abortions, it seems possible that the conditions that necessitate them may never be wholly eliminated, even if vasectomies become generalized and perfected ectogenetic technologies become universally accessible. As long as people are performing pregnancy on this earth, they must be free to change their minds about seeing it through.
Pregnancy. Performing pregnancy. I have to pause just for a second here because it is so funny to have them talk about things. And it's like, I mean, you mentioned this numerous times before. Yeah. It's like you're walking down the street and boom, you're pregnant.
They never mentioned the act of becoming pregnant.
Never acknowledge that there's some sense in which there's responsibility on the part of both parents.
It's just so weird how it's been completely eliminated in the discussion.
It's astounding how many Virgin Marys there have been.
Yes. If you listen to the media, you seriously tell me where they actually talk about the act of becoming pregnant.
Yeah. What leads to it? The choices that lead to it.
They never, ever, it just happens by itself.
Yeah, it just happens.
Unless it's a rapist.
Or
incest. That's the only time there's somebody who is mechanically involved.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as people are performing pregnancy on this earth, they must be free to change their minds about seeing it through. The adoption industry could be revolutionized and child welfare lavishly subsidized, regardless of the available supports. No one should be pregnant involuntarily.
Well, you know that nobody should be drunk involuntarily either. When you drink 3 beers or 3 shots of vodka, you should be able to choose whether or not you get drunk. Yeah.
Exactly. Or anything that requires responsibility.
Exactly. This is so stupid.
Yes. The science of medicine dictates that when foreign organisms inhabit the human body unwelcomely, we tend to eject them. When a beloved non-human member of the family is sick and elderly, many pet owners decide not to pay for medical care and opt for euthanasia instead. It is a mark of moral seriousness to acknowledge what we're doing when we butcher a cow or put a pet to sleep, or, for that matter, euthanize a human relative. Where do we euthanize human relatives in this country?
Yeah, well, that has not been decided. We might be sliding towards that.
Yeah,
but we are not doing it yet.
We better not be euthanizing human relatives.
Euthanizing human relatives, yes.
According to the philosopher of science Donna Haraway, we must stay with the trouble of the violence we inevitably mete out in our everyday traffic with forms of life.
I got to stop here. She talks about patronizing those who are engaging in these practices of killing. Who is it that's been patronizing them? We've said all along that it's killing a child. Now they acknowledge it, and they want to use it against us as a club.
Exactly.
Who has been the ones pushing the point that this is not killing a baby? Mm-hmm. That's not been us. That's been them. And now they get here and they want to take the moral high road, that they're walking the right path. Right. They've been lying to us the whole way through 50 years of Roe, telling us that we're wrong. We're not killing a child. Now they acknowledge that they're killing a child, and they want moral praise for it.
Right. Exactly. Now you understand.
Now I understand. Yes.
Now you understand, Winston.
Yes.
According to the philosopher of science, Donna Haraway, we must stay with the trouble of the violence we inevitably mete out in our everyday traffic with forms of life, be it at the dinner table, the battlefield, or in the scientific laboratory. Rather than squaring our acts of killing away according to a moral calculus, or pretending that we aren't really killing, multi-species feminists should subscribe, suggests Haraway, to the ethical imperative thou shalt not make killable.
In other words, don't get pregnant. Is that it? I mean, is that what she's saying?
That's what I'm thinking. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Huh. I mean, I agree with that. If you're going to kill it, don't get pregnant in the first place. That's your choice.
Right. So which way is it? We just get pregnant in some weird pokey way?
Yeah. So spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it.
Or thou shalt not make killable, meaning that don't get pregnant. I'm not sure which one in this article.
Yeah, I don't know.
This might seem counterintuitive in the context of an argument in favor of abortion as killing, but the distinction between making fetuses killable and making it easy and stigma-free for people to take the decision to kill a fetus is significant. The former refers to casting something, a lab rat for example, out of the sphere of the grievable, thanks to a tidy and final verdict on the permissibility of systematically sacrificing its life to a greater cause. The latter, while expanding access to the means of feticide, does not necessarily require any such sanitization of violence.
In other words, we're going to accept the violence, but hey, it serves a greater purpose, which is what I've said about them over and over and over again. As long as the end is what we want, whatever means are justified to get there are justified. The whole idea that human beings are means to an end.
No, I mean, what's the greater purpose in this case?
Well, the end is to establish a better world. Okay. Their version of utopia, the socialist utopia.
I was thinking sacrificing the baby so that you can live your life.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it amounts to. Okay. Right, because we said this in the last one too. There are two ways of looking at the fetus for the left.
Mm-hmm.
One, it is a means to the end of the woman or the family or whatever it is. It's just a means. It's never an end in itself. Or it's a pathology.
Right.
And if it's a pathology, of course we want to kill it because pathologies are necessarily bad.
Right.
But if it's a means, we are also free to kill it. And the problem with that is you yourself. Why are you yourself not just a means to the end of everything else? And that's what communism, socialism always leads to, because that's the essential doctrine underlying it. Everything is a means to an end, including human beings.
Exactly. Well, the reason I said about the women, the means to the ends where you sacrifice your baby because for the greater good of your life. I was thinking about the whole comparing ourselves to animals that can expel at will, expel pregnancy at will. And a deer decides, I want to live my own life. I want to go off and have a career as a leaf eater.
Professional deer?
Professional leaf eater. I don't know what they do. And then they expel at will. But that's what I'm saying. You can you use the argument of the animal, but an animal's purpose, its focus is to raise children, baby
to pass
animals.
on the species.
Right.
And you know what?
You can't pick and choose what you want.
That's part of being a human being, too.
Right.
We have this biological impulse to pass on the species. We want to have children.
Right.
It's part of what we are. And again, they deny that.
Right.
They don't want to embrace women as actual beings.
Right.
They want to embrace some sort of fantasy of what a woman should be in their view.
Right.
It is so divorced from reality, right? This idea science is real. Well, who's the ones who are denying science?
Right.
They're denying science.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about men competing as women in women's sports. A 29-year-old man beating a 13-year-old girl at a skateboarding competition because he claims he's a woman.
Yes,
and winning the prize and going home proudly.
All the best women are men.
Okay, for millennia, those of us who have helped a friend terminate a pregnancy, be it with herbal abortifacients, progesterone blockers and ulcer tablets, or vacuum extraction devices, are well situated to understand that something is killed during a uterine evacuation. And here it is. This is the thing that much as a flower dies when it is plucked. That's where they're going to go with this. I know they are.
And that is again the means thing. It's like the flower has no end other than for my pleasure. Right.
So we say you're killing a baby. Yes, it's a little flower, just like a little flower, and we're plucking it. Yep. And it's harmless.
Yeah, notice they're acknowledging a certain value, and then they're saying, "But we're going to kill it, and that's okay.
We're going to pluck it.
Pluck it. Oh yeah, pluck it.
That's different.
That's great. Oh yeah, pluck it.
Right.
Well, what's left over after you pluck the baby? Sorry.
Well, when you pluck a flower, you have a flower. You have a beautiful flower. It's still a flower until it dies. Yeah. And that image in your mind of plucking a baby, you think that's the same thing happens, and you get the image of it produces an image of beauty.
Right. Well, yeah,
plucking a flower produces an image of beauty in your mind. Yeah.
They're certainly using that as an image to try to sort of justify what they're doing.
Right.
Oh, isn't it beautiful that women have the capacity to bear children
and pluck?
Boom.
Right.
I'll kill this flower.
Right.
And then we can discard it.
That's not how they say it.
And then we can discard it.
Pluck a daisy chain.
Yeah.
But what's the point of acknowledging this now at a time when abortion rights are so imperiled? For one thing, it would seem hard to deny that the euphemistic, apologetic, placatory, pro-choice strategy hasn't worked out thus far. That's it right there. The pro-choice.
Placatory, yes. Because it's like we've been placating them.
Right.
We have been placating the right because they've been saying that this is a valuable life and we shouldn't kill it.
Right.
Well, we're acknowledging it, we kill it, And damn it,
That's okay.
It's okay by us.
And here you go, right here. So why not risk coming out for what we actually want? Namely, abortion, a clearly documented public good. The pending Supreme Court leak thrusts us into a situation in which we have little left to lose. Rather than cleave in desperation to the rearguard missions of defending the rights to privacy rather than abortion, enshrined in Roe v. Wade, we could consider this moment a chance to reset the terms on which abortion is fought.
There we go.
There it is.
Move the goalposts again.
They have to reset it because now it's going back to the states.
Yep.
And it's a whole new fight now. It's a whole new arena now.
And we better be ready for it because they are going to start fighting tooth and nail with everything they have, including this argument.
Yes.
Hey, it's our right to kill our babies.
Right. Because it's forced labor.
It's forced because it's forced labor.
Is against it, which is in international law it's
taking us back to slavery.
Right. What would it mean to acknowledge that a death is involved in an abortion? Above all, it would allow for a fairer fight against the proponents of forced gestating. When pro-life forces agitate against feticide on the basis that it is killing, here it is, pro-abortion feminists should be able to acknowledge without shame that yes, of course it is. When we withdraw from gestating, we stop the life of the product of our gestational labor. And it's a good thing we do, too, for otherwise the world would sag under the weight of forced life. It is a hard pill to swallow for a misogynist society sentimentally attached to its ideology of patriarchal motherhood. But the truth is that gestators should get to decide which bodies to give form to. This choosing is our prerogative. A desire not to be pregnant is sufficient reason in and of itself to terminate a gestatee.
Gestatee, yes, there you go. I'm pregnant. I don't want to be pregnant. I'm going to kill it. And that's okay.
Alice and Bambi.
Alice and Bambi, yes, if you remember our analogy from last week. Right.
When we force anti-abortionists to disagree explicitly with this, we bring their logic of female subordination into the open. Those with uteruses must serve patiently as the vessels through which life passes. We lay bare the calculus at the heart of their worldview, which they only sometimes spell out in so many words, as does the Mississippi pro-life leader Barbara Beaver, and this is what Barbara Beaver says: mothers should die for their babies, not the other way around.
Yeah, what a horrible thing to think that we human beings ought to be willing to give our lives for those who are innocent and who have a chance at life beyond ourselves. What an unbelievable thing. And if you've ever wondered, folks, whether or not they are on board with Christianity, there you go. This is their essential hatred of the Christian message. Giving your life for another is stupid, irrational, and counterproductive. You're an idiot for thinking that your child is more valuable than yourself. That you should be given your life for someone else. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Know who your enemies are, folks, because they're out of the closet now. They're recognizing, they're actually declaring who they are. And we need to know it, and we need to stop compromising with them.
I was looking at I saw an article headline today. It says, woke churches label pro-life movement a demonic agenda. Woke churches across the country have celebrated abortion, even gone as far as labeling the pro-life movement a demonic agenda in the wake of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade.
There you go.
Right.
Evil for good, light for darkness.
Okay, so yeah, we're seeing it even in the churches.
Absolutely.
Even in different denominations. Women are human and as such can never be as innocent as the unborn. But innocence, as we see every time a police victim is described as no angel by the press, is a fundamentally inhumane category in politics deriving from the most punitive interpretations of Christianity. According to this imaginary non-innocence is the core characteristic of everything fallen, which is to say everything that has ever lived. That's why the ghoulish natalism of those lobbying to give embryos the rights of patients and persons in law is in the end an anti-life position. It cares solely for the quantitative rather than the qualitative dimensions of life, chasing life in the abstract and missing everything that matters about life as it is actually lived, life in particular. It amazes me how they have demonized pro-life.
Right? Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Uh-huh.
That the idea that we are, you see how they turn language and they turn it around on us.
Right.
And they do this over and over and over again.
That's what amazes me. Go ahead.
Well, we talked about changing good for evil. That's exactly what they're doing here. It's like, we are pro-life. No, you're pro-death. We're pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
They want to kill babies. They're acknowledging that here and now in this article. And they're pro-life. We are pro-death.
Right.
Because we are advocating for the life of the child. Double speak, folks.
Right.
Do you remember what we talked about in the Christian Atheist when I asked the question, are we living in George Orwell's 1984? Maybe not quite yet, but we sure as
heck.
Yeah, sure as heck are skirting the edges of it. If this is doublespeak in its most full form, right? They're pro-life when they want to be able to kill babies in the womb.
Right.
You know that statistically, the most dangerous place for a child in America is the womb.
Mm-hmm. I am not well learned about Nazi Germany and what society was like at that time in Germany at the time. But what kind of conversations like this were they having about the Jews, discussing whether they were
humans
and justifying themselves and using this kind of an argument?
Well, you can imagine.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Within groups of people, what were they saying at that time?
Yeah, I mean, you can even imagine the Nazis saying, like, I don't care if they're human.
Right.
They're vermin.
Right.
They're human vermin.
And
we can kill them at will.
Saying,
Much
we're
like
killing
the kulaks
we're killing the Jews and
Russia.
It's okay.
Yes.
We're killing people we don't like and it's okay.
And it's okay.
But I mean, we don't know for sure if they were saying these things or what kind of discussions they were having. I don't know because I haven't studied it enough. But as humans, you figure that people had to have been having these discussions at that time about what was going on.
Basic logic.
Right.
It follows the same and this socialist Hegelian logic always leads to the same position. We're not crossing new ground here, folks. This is exactly the same logic that we've been dealing with from Hegel through Marx, through all of the Soviets and the Maoists in China. And now we're adopting it here in our country.
Right.
Unless we get a hold of it, we are going to be running the same road that the 20th century ran. And I don't have much hope if we don't get a hold of it.
Right.
And that's why I said last time that the Dobbs decision is for me one of the greatest moments of hope in my lifetime that we could perhaps turn this around.
Right. Okay, back to the article. Fetishizing newness and sentimentalizing helplessness, pro-lifers pit themselves ruthlessly against the overwhelming majority of human life in particular. In their minds, fetuses deserve every protection, while we actually existing human beings belong to a completely different species. We are on our own, self-responsible, fatally compromised because enfleshed.
Yes. Yes. That's what it is to be a human being, to be responsible for oneself. Yes, that's exactly right. Horror of horrors. You have to take responsibility for your own life and for killing your baby.
There's a multitude of things all the time coming at us.
Yes.
It's not just when we suddenly become pregnant out of the blue.
Yeah, human life is difficult.
Mhm.
We're not arguing that. That's certainly the case.
Mhm. Anti-abortionists routinely sacrifice the health and happiness of actual persons in defense of the forced survival of potential ones. It is high time we went on the offensive against their sickening, sacrificial version of vitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Ours is the mature pro-life politics.
Yes, there they go again.
They're taking
Reversing it.
they're
They're
taking it.
pro-life.
Yeah, they're
Yep.
taking it. I don't want to live in a world that valorizes life for its own sake. I want to live in a world that prioritizes the life chosen and wanted.
Ooh, discrimination. I thought discrimination was a bad term.
Exactly.
Here's the fact, folks. People, there are no terms with them that have fixed meanings.
Mm-hmm.
The only meanings they have are meanings that get them to the end that they desire.
People's lives are worth more than fetuses' lives. And that is the article.
Well, that was a real treat, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It certainly
It's
was
eye-opening.
Eye-opening.
And it helps us to see where the fight's going and where the argument's going and where the logic is going.
Yes. Yep. It's a very clear realization of the logic of the left,
Mm-hmm.
where they've taken us, and from where they started, where they've gotten us to.
And are we ready for it?
We better be.
Yeah. Is the side that's for life, is that side ready for this?
Yeah, they're not going to give up.
Mm-hmm. But I'm saying we're as pro-life people, we're still saying, but it's a baby. What are we going to say now when they come back, when we're talking to somebody and they say, yeah, we know it's a baby.
Yeah, we know it's a baby.
We're plucking
so what?
a flower.
We're going to kill it.
Right.
And we're all right with that.
Right.
Now what?
And so
that's what we're going to do here in
Right.
California.
Right.
Yes, we acknowledge it's a baby and we're happy to kill it. Shout
Right.
your abortion.
Right. Right. So now what are we going to do? You know what I'm saying?
We better get ready.
Right.
And we better take our country back.
Mm-hmm.
And we better start realizing that there is no compromise
Right.
on some things.
Right. Okay, so I think that's the last of the abortion discussions.
Yeah, probably for a while anyway. I
And
can't
so-
imagine the issues going away.
And so the other day we'd had enough, right?
Yeah.
Everything's gotten dark
Yep.
and
Yeah, in fact, it was so bad we started reading.
everything's gotten dark, and so we were like, we need to do something else.
Yeah.
We want to read something funny,
a little more
something
enjoyable.
light, something that has some meat to it, but it's not like this subject.
Yes.
So what did we choose?
So we ended up reading The Magician's Nephew
By C.S. Lewis.
by C.S. Lewis.
The first book in the Chronicles of Narnia series.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been eye-opening.
So there we go. Maybe next week that will be our topic.
Right.
The Magician's Nephew. We look forward to it. I am a Christian with the searching and skeptical mind of an atheist. I don't want to believe anything that isn't true. I know both sides of the looking glass, and I know them with open eyes. I choose Christ's side. I invite you to join me from wherever you stand before the looking glass. That's this week's episode. Thanks for listening. And remember, you can have your religious cake and eat it too. You can have reason, respect for science, a 21st century worldview, and be a Christian.